Dear fellow truth seekers, thank you and welcome for visiting my channel, MythoReligio. MythoReligio is a video channel based on a book series with the same name about religious comparison studies between the stories in Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism and Buddhism, directly from their sacred books and world mythologies, hence the name MythoReligio. The purpose is to retrace the prehistory of humanity, since I'm not fully satisfied with either the explanations from the point of view of creationist nor evolutionist. There are so many missing links in both explanations. If you feel the same, then you are on the right channel. In this channel, I will also analyze about the prehistory of humanity from the archaeological records, modern scientific point of view, and other alternative theories such as the ancient alien theories and Atlantis or Lemuria legends. After thorough research of circa 30 years, I recognize many similarities between all religious stories and even mythologies, and surprisingly, some of them are in accordance or even beyond modern science that have been proven as correct. Thus, I came to the conclusion that all religions must have come from the same source. And all these religious stories and mythologies, although heavily jumbled up, are actually telling one mega story, the true prehistory of our common ancestors. This mega story is quite different than what we have been told to believe and will truly blow your mind, as it is more fascinating than our imagination. If you have watched the earlier videos in this channel, I believe you can see some of the similarities too. If you haven't and you truly want to do a religious comparative study, I suggest that you do so. The best way to do a comprehensive religious study via this channel is by watching the videos starting from number 1 and continue until this present video and so on. That way you will see a clear pattern. In this channel I will share almost all that I have written in my book series. However, there is one book so far that I cannot share in this channel due to its sensitive, shocking and dark nature, and also might be considered controversial to some, but I believe it sheds more light to the above conclusion. If you want to read this around 500 pages ebook with many full-color illustrations, you are more than welcome to download book number 5 entitled History of the Dark Side, that is available for free in ebook format that can be found in my website www.mythoreligio.com. You only have to give your email address and it will be sent to you directly. And no, I won't share your email address nor send any advertisement. The link is in the description box. If you want to get the physical book, kindly go to amazon.com. Now let's continue with this week's video. Evolution from water to land. Is it possible? Dear fellow truth seekers, for the last few weeks I have shared with you the scientific theories on the origin of life, i.e. the theory of evolution and the Big Bang theory, for our religious versus science comparison study. I did this in order to find answers to the questions that are not answered satisfactorily by religion. In the last video, I have shared with you one of the many missing links in the theory of evolution that haven't been answered by science satisfactorily, i.e. about mutation and natural selection. Now let's continue to analyze some other missing links. Since the first time Darwin made the theory of evolution popular, it has always received strong opposition from the religious groups, especially from Christians in Europe and/or America. Personally, I do not have any objection whether this theory is correct or not. I just want to know the truth. I do believe in God, and actually, even if this theory is correct, it does not necessarily prove that God does not exist, right? The problem is, the more I read books about this theory, pro and contra, the less convinced I am of its validity. There are too many questions that are left unexplained satisfactorily. When we look at the complexity in the molecular level alone, evolution does not seem possible, unless there are enough fossils of transitional forms proving it to be true. If this theory is true, the fossils record must show the transitional forms from one species to another. Have we found the fossils of this intermediate species? When we look at the pictures presented in evolution books, it seems like we have. But have we, really? Transitional forms are the intermediate forms of life appearing in the fossil record that are in between existing types of organisms found today or in the past. If slow, gradual evolution occurred, we would expect to observe a continuum of change in the fossil record. Yes, not every dead creature becomes fossil. But if life took millions of years to arrive at its present state of development, the Earth should be filled with fossils that could be easily assembled into a number of series showing minor changes as species were evolving. These forms are not there. This absence of evidence is commonly termed as the missing links, although I use this term also for other topics that are not satisfactorily answered by the evolution theory. And we must not forget, if species evolves gradually into another species, then the transitional forms should be many, many more than the non-transitional forms. Evolution in the water. According to the evolution theory, sea invertebrates such as cnidarians evolved into fish tens of million years ago. How did this happen? There are enormous structural differences between these two species. Invertebrates have their hard tissue outside their bodies, whereas fish are vertebrates that have theirs on the inside. Such an enormous evolution would have taken so many steps to be completed, and there should be many, many of transitional forms displaying them. When Darwin proposed this theory, he was aware that it was not supported by evidence, although he was convinced that one day the fossils would prove him right. He stated it this way: the number of intermediate and transitional links between all living and extinct species must have been inconceivably great. But assuredly, if this theory of evolution be true, such have lived upon the earth. The Origin of Species, 1958, Mentor edition, page 289. It has been argued that the transitional forms haven't been found because there have not been enough fossils on Earth to accurately portray life as it existed long ago. However, since Darwin's time, there has been a 100-fold increase in the number of fossils found, and a systematic problem still remains. Scientists have been digging fossil strata for more than 100 years, looking for these hypothetical forms. They have found millions of invertebrate fossils and millions of fish fossils. Yet, nobody has ever found even one that is midway between them. An evolutionary paleontologist, Gerald T. Todd, admits a similar fact in an article titled Evolution of the Lung and the Origin of Bony Fishes. All three subdivisions of bony fishes first appear in the fossil record at approximately the same time. They are already widely divergent morphologically and are heavily armored. How did they originate? What allowed them to diverge so widely? How did they all come to have heavy armor? And why is there no trace of earlier intermediate forms? Thus, we do not have the fossil record to prove that invertebrates evolved into fish. I wonder though, why are we only concerned about the fossil record? If evolution really is a fact, some of these transitional creatures must exist too today. Or did the evolution process happen only in the past and has stopped today? If so, why? Evolution from water to land. The theory goes further and explains that fish evolved into land-dwelling animals. Supposedly, just when fish started to creep on land, fins gradually became feet. I believe almost every layperson has heard of this, and many simply believe it since scientists say so. Well, I thought it was possible, because I had seen so many pictures similar to this picture. But is it really possible? Then I read the explanation of how this mechanism is quite impossible because of the vast differences between these two species. Weight bearing. Sea-dwelling creatures have no problem in bearing their own weight in the sea. But most land-dwelling creatures consume 40% of their energy just in carrying their bodies around. Creatures making the transition from water to land would at the same time have had to develop new muscular and skeletal systems to meet this energy need, and this could not have come about by chance mutations. Heat retention. On land, the temperature can change quickly and fluctuates over a wide range. Land-dwelling creatures possess a physical mechanism that can withstand such great temperature changes. But in the sea, the temperature changes slowly and within a narrower range. A living organism with a body system regulated according to the constant temperature of the sea would need to acquire a protective system to ensure minimum harm from the temperature changes on land. How did sea-dwelling creatures acquire such a system by random mutations as soon as they stepped onto land? Water. Essential to metabolism, water needs to be used economically due to its relative scarcity on land. For instance, the skin has to be able to permit a certain amount of water loss, while also preventing excessive evaporation. That is why land-dwelling creatures experience thirst, something the sea-dwelling creatures do not do. For this reason, the skin of sea-dwelling animals is not suitable for a non-aquatic habitat. Kidneys. Sea-dwelling organisms discharge waste materials, especially ammonia, by means of their aquatic environment. On land, water has to be used economically. This is why these living beings have a kidney system. Thanks to the kidneys, ammonia is stored by being converted into urea, and the minimum amount of water is used during its excretion, i.e. urination. In addition, new systems are needed to provide the kidneys functioning. In short, in order for the passage from water to land to have occurred, living things without a kidney would have had to develop a kidney system all at once. Respiratory system. Fish breathe by taking in oxygen dissolved in water that they pass through their gills. They cannot live more than a few minutes out of water. In order to survive on land, they would have to acquire a perfect lung system all of a sudden. Is it possible that all these dramatic physiological changes could have happened in the same organism at the same time and all by chance? A half-functioning gills or lungs could never work. This transitional creature could not have survived. Is there any example of fish/amphibians intermediate? Mud skipper. Sometimes the mud skipper is used as an example of a living intermediary animal between a water and land-dwelling fish. However, these amphibious fish that can use their pectoral fins, i.e. fins on their chest, to walk on land cannot be termed as intermediaries because they do not have lungs. They breathe in similar way as amphibians. They maintain water in the gill chamber to keep the gills wet, so-called cutaneous respiration. There is no unstable intermediary thing in the mud skipper, which natural selection will correct via its zillions more intermediary terms. Neither do the gills show anything that it is a transition between a fish and an amphibian. And up to now, they still haven't evolved into something else. This is what P.P. Grass, the eminent French zoologist, has to say about this, quite sarcastically, as follows. What makes us particularly unwilling to accept the story of the little fish, the Magellan of evolution, is the fact that the Boliotalmidae and Periotalmidae, i.e. mud skippers, perform this very experiment of trying to explore dry land as the Darwinian story goes. They scuttle across the mud, climb the roots of mangrove trees, and raise themselves on their pectoral fins just as if the limbs were short limbs. They have lived this way for millions of years, and although they never stop leaping about, awkwardly or not, their fins insist on remaining as they are, rather than transforming themselves into limbs. these animals are not really understanding of Darwin. Coelacanth. Coelacanth was believed to be an example of intermediate between fish and amphibian. It was estimated to be 425 million years of age and believed to have a primitive lung, a developed brain, a digestive and a circulatory system ready to function on land, and even a primitive walking mechanism. These anatomical interpretations were accepted as undisputed truth among scientific circles until the end of the 1930s. The coelacanth was presented as a genuine transitional form that proved the evolutionary transition from water to land. However, on December 22, 1938, a very interesting discovery was made in the Indian Ocean. A living member of the coelacanth family, previously presented as a transitional form that had become extinct 70 million years ago, was caught. The discovery of a living prototype of the coelacanth undoubtedly gave evolutionists a severe shock. The evolutionist paleontologist G.L.B. Smith said that, "If I had met a dinosaur in the street, I would have been more astonished." In the years to come, 200 coelacanth were caught many times in different parts of the world. And contrary to what had been claimed, coelacanth had neither a primitive lung nor a large brain. The organ that was proposed as a primitive lung turned out to be nothing but a lipid pouch, i.e. a pouch that contains a sort of fat. Reference Jacques Millot, The Coelacanth. Furthermore, the coelacanth, which was introduced as a reptile candidate getting prepared to pass from sea to land, was in reality a fish that lived in the depth of the oceans and never approached nearer than 180 meters or 590 feet from the surface. Reference Technique magazine, November 1998, number 372. Thus, so far, the missing link between fish and amphibians is still not found. As stated by Robert L. Carroll, an evolutionary paleontologist and authority on vertebrate paleontology, wrote in his book Patterns and Processes of Vertebrate Evolution, published in 1997, "We have no intermediate fossils between Rhiphidian fish and early amphibians." Note, Rhiphidian fish is a group of fish which includes tetrapods, four-legged, and lungfishes. Ichthyostega. Coelacanth and similar fish are considered as the ancestors of land-dwelling animals because of their bony fins. According to the evolution theory, these bones slowly turn into feet. However, there is a fundamental difference between the bones of this fish and the feet of such land animals as Ichthyostega. As shown in image 1, the bones in the coelacanth are not connected to its backbone. The bones in Ichthyostega, as shown in image 2, however, are directly attached to the backbone. Therefore, the claim that these fins slowly turn into feet is totally groundless. Furthermore, as can be seen from images 3 and 4, the structures of the bones in the coelacanth fin and the feet in Ichthyostega are completely different. A statement that Ichthyostega is a missing link between fishes and later tetrapods reveals far more about our prejudices than about the creature that we are supposed to be studying. It shows how much we are imposing a restricted view on reality based on our own limited experience, when reality may be larger, stranger, and more different than we can imagine. Henry G., an evolutionist, editor of Nature magazine, In Search of Deep Time Beyond the Fossil Record to a New History of Life. New York, The Free Press, a division of Simon & Schuster, Incorporated, 1999, page 54. So, upon analysis, scientific explanation concerning the evolution from water to land is actually hard to defend. Next week, we will continue with the analysis of evolution from fish to amphibians to reptiles. But for now, allow me to thank you for watching and hope to see you next week.